Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about how to make this beautiful bookshelf. We started out with branches. These are constructed of 3/4 inch plywood sheets that have been glued together in 1 sheet, 2 sheet, and 3 sheet configurations, and cut according to our schematic, link in the description below. Now that we have our branches, we need something for them to sit on. That's where this 3/4 inch thick sheet of plywood comes into. Since it's going to be our backdrop, we need to paint it. We started out with a thick coat of primer to seal the plywood, and to act as a base for the brown paint that we're going to add later. After the primer was dried, we added our deep brown coat. We were looking for a stark contrast between the background and the tree. That's why we opted for such a deep shade of brown. So we went ahead and laid out the tree pieces according to the schematic. The next thing to do is attach them. In order to do that, we need a drill with a small bit for pre-drilling. We're going to need a larger bit for countersinking the screws. And then we're going to need a set of screws. I'm using 2-inch screws right here because they're going to be going through 3/4 inch plywood into the back of the tree branches. And they need to go a decent amount in because the weight of the books is going to be pulling down on them like this. First thing to do is to line up your boards in the correct place and make sure that they're square. That way that we know our board is square against the base edge here. Once we have our rulers lined up, we're going to take the board away. And we're going to drill several holes on the bottom side so we know from the back how we're going to drill. You want to reline up the board so that it's in the correct place. And then you're going to drill in from the bottom. Use a thin bit to pre-drill so you don't crack the plywood. Use a thicker bit to countersink the screws. You're now good to sink your first set of screws. This is where it's important to make sure that your branches are very flush and flat. Otherwise, when you screw them in, they'll tilt and turn. We wanted to hide all the screws so they wouldn't be visible from the front. This one will be covered up by a branch and is good to add structural support to the base of the tree. We started by fixing the main trunk to the background first. This is important so that the rest of the branches line up accordingly. To fix each piece, we would first butt it up to the piece before it, and then line either side with rulers so we know how wide the piece was. The piece is then taken away and holes are drilled from the top of the plywood. This is so we know where to drill in from the bottom when we replace the piece. Screwing each branch in will take some time. You have to be careful about its placement so that the gaps between each branch are not accentuated when you screw them in. It's nice to have a friend to help you set the boards, and 2 tables to put the plywood on so you can get underneath the boards easily. Since you have to use 3 sets of drill bits, it's also nice if you have several drills so you don't have to keep swapping the bits out. Okay, so we built the tree 8 feet tall, thought it would be good enough, but then when we tried to stick it into the room, it was too tall, like smashing at the ceiling. So we're going to take off about 3 inches off the top, and we've already set up our jig right here. It's going to guide the skill saw, so we can lop off a full 3 inches, and then call it good. So hopefully this works.
After some measuring malfunctions, we are going...
Was not me, that was definitely not me.
We're going to sand the top of the tree.
Sand all the surfaces of the tree to make a nice smooth finish and to prep the surface for polyurethane later. Once you're finished sanding, wipe down the entire tree with a damp rag to ensure that no dust is left on it.
We're about to brush on some polyurethane.
That's this stuff right here, because we got our tree, you know, it's all sanded and pretty, and we took some wet rags and made it all nice and dust free. So I think we're about to get started here. What are you excited about?
Brushing it on. But it's gonna smell
It wasn't.
terrible.
Yeah, this stuff's pretty bad. Make sure you're in a ventilated area, not like this garage that we're in. If we're dead by the end of this, that's why. So full disclosure, do this outside, please. So get started.
What I'm doing is I'm putting it on the wood right now, but we're also going to put it on the paint to protect the paint also. So that's...
Yeah, really? Is that your plan? Is that what you... Then you just do that? Polyurethane makes for a nice, clean, protective coat, but will raise rough burrs when it's finished drying. So make sure and go over it with a light piece of sandpaper.
Pretty
Don't
exciting that
pretend
we're
you're
almost
working.
done.
Yeah, I know. Took forever. Just the last wee little bit right here. We totally upgraded our security. Check that bad boy out. Wiping those toxic fumes out of this place. And you feeling pretty lightheaded right now, huh?
Actually it's more like my back.
After the polyurethane dried, we started to make the brace on the wall where we were going to place the bookshelf. We found the studs in the wall and screwed two 2x4s into them. We then marked on the back of the tree where those 2x4s met. We laid the tree down and then screwed another two set of 2x4s into the back of the tree. We set the tree against it again and then screwed the 2x4s into each other. We did this so as not to have screws coming straight in from the front of the tree.